The report cards are in, not for students, but for Texas public schools, inching some districts closer to a state takeover. Details and more today on the Texas Standard.
Texas Standard is a production of KUT Austin, KERA North Texas, Houston Public Media, and Texas Public Radio in San Antonio.
I'm David Brown. Understanding Paxton versus Roblox, why the Texas Attorney General and Republican Senate candidate has put a popular gaming platform in his legal crosshairs. Also, what some describe as a little like Bitcoin with a come-and-take-it attitude. Today, Texas financial regulators set to lay out a case against what's called the TEXITcoin. And the Texan some credit with inventing riff-based jazz. The San Marcos-born trombone player, perhaps better known as an electric guitar trailblazer. Those stories and more when the Standard gets underway, right after this. No matter where you are, it's Texas Standard Time on this 17th day of August, a date that strikes fear and dread in the hearts of many a young person as it heralds the end of summer vacation and the return of school. Not all young students feel this way, of course. I'm David Brown. Great to have you with us as families across Texas are checking backpacks, buying school supplies, getting ready for another school year. For Texas public schools themselves, it's report card season. The Texas Education Agency has just released its annual A through F accountability ratings for school districts and campuses across the state. The short overview: most schools held steady or improved just a bit. But for a handful of districts, these grades carry consequences that go far beyond bragging rights. In Austin, 2 middle schools have now received failing grades for a 5th straight year. That puts Austin ISD on the brink of a possible state takeover. Other districts managed to avoid that fate, while some already under state control are pointing to signs of progress. Let's back up just a minute here. Just what do these grades actually measure? Why do they matter so much? And what happens next for districts that find themselves on the state's watch list? Here to tell us more, Greta Diaz-Gonzalez-Vasquez, who covers education for our home station, KUT. Greta, welcome.
Hi, David.
Also on the line, Bill Ziebel, who reports on education for KERA North Texas. Bill, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
Hey, before we dig into the grades themselves, let's get up to speed on how these A through F ratings are derived in the first place. Greta, can you explain that and why the stakes are so high to begin with?
So these grades are mainly based on the STAR test that we know Texas students take them every year. And something we should know for the 2 schools in Austin is that students can only take these tests in English and Spanish 3rd grade, and starting 5th grade, they have to only take them in English. So that has a big impact on some schools.
Bill, if we put all these report cards together, what are we looking at when it comes to the state of Texas public schools? Can you speak to that?
Overall, the TEA, the Texas Education Agency, says we've held steady, stable. There are, at least in North Texas schools, mostly fewer lower performing schools. Others held steady, and there are more A schools, A and B schools than last year, according to the state.
There are 8 districts that are currently managed by state-appointed leadership. We're talking about Houston ISD. A lot of our listeners know that the state's largest district was taken over in 2023. Fort Worth ISD, we have an intervention there. Beaumont ISD, Lake Worth ISD, Connolly ISD, La Jolla ISD, Shepherd ISD, and South San Antonio ISD, the 8 currently under state control or supervision, depending on whose definition you use here. Greta, I guess one of the big stories coming out of these ratings, what might happen with these, with the Austin Independent School District, 2 middle schools, their 5th failing rating in a row, I guess. How close is the district to being taken over by the state?
Yeah, so this is, like you said, this is their 5th failing grade. The way getting here was, there was a lot of anxiety this week to know what was happening with these 2 schools, because AISD has tried hard to for these schools to do better, they had submitted a 1882 agreement. That's an agreement that allows a charter to run the schools for 2 years, and that would have paused the accountability clock. That was earlier this year, and it was with the Texas Council for International Studies. But in May, the TA rejected the partnership, saying that TCIS had failed to prove a track record of improving campuses' academic performance. So now that these two schools got a fifth failing grade from the Texas Education Agency, it's up to Education Commissioner Mike Morath whether to take over the whole district or not, but it might be a little bit too soon to know that. Let's listen to him. He was talking to reporters on Friday.
There's a 30-day window to apply for appeal. Then there's about 60 days where we have a third-party panel review and just check all the work, make sure it's accurate. Sometimes those result in ratings changes. So I think it's way preliminary to discuss what actually might happen in Austin as a result of that.
So, Greta, what are you hearing from the community about this?
Well, yeah, AISD parents are very worried for sure. Some are upset to know that these schools didn't receive the right resources for many years, or that's what they're saying, that the schools didn't receive the right resources for many years. And once they did, then it was too late to save the schools or bring the grades up. Other parents and community members have created a coalition that includes AISD Employee Union Education Austin, and the coalition is trying to avoid a takeover. They have been protesting, and they're asking TA to reconsider the 1882 agreement that they did not approve, yet that agreement was canceled by AISD and TCIS. So it's really unclear what they can do at this point, but there's a lot of talks between parents at this point.
Bill, your coverage area, you report on North Texas, and obviously Fort Worth ISD has been under supervision. What has the result been so far from what you can tell?
Well, the school district is improving overall. We're looking at improved school, but there's now a second school that's been F-rated 5 years in a row. So there was concern that, what else can the TEA do? And on Friday also, Mike Morath basically said, we're going to leave it alone. Let the process play out. I see improvements happening, or I'm counting on improvements to happen. And the students at the new F-rated school, he expects, will be performing better and learning more by the end of this coming school year. So basically, he said, I have faith in the system we put in place last fall when we moved in the first place.
Anecdotally, have either of you heard anything from parents who welcome the state intervention? I know, Greta, you mentioned that it seems like there are groups coming together to try to push back against that prospect in Austin. Have either of you heard from parents who welcome state intervention?
I have heard of parents who are saying that because Austin ISD has closed schools in the last year, because they have had a budget deficit, that it wouldn't be the worst to have a takeover, to have somebody look over the district. But honestly, these are not the majority of parents. And there's a lot, as soon as somebody says that, there's somebody who tells them what a takeover entails and what it has meant in other districts. And a lot of times that means changing opinions pretty quickly.
What does a takeover entail? Why is it that loss of local control is so important to so many parents? Could either of you speak to that?
Well, local control means you elect school board officials and you presume and hope those trustees are accountable and responding to the voters who chose them to make sure the school's functioning. What happens with a TEA takeover? The superintendent is removed and another is installed, often usually from the outside. And all of the elected school board members disappear and are, newly appointed with oversight from the TEA. So you lose that local input. But then again, Mike Morath, the commissioner, says, I'm a parent, I have 4 kids in schools, and he sees himself as representing the parents who want the schools to perform. And he says, when they aren't performing, people like me, parents trying to pick a good school, we're left out in the cold. So obviously he praises the A through F system on behalf of parents who want to know if the schools are performing. But locally, it's hard, it's rare to encounter parents locally who want the TEA moving in from the outside, even though you could argue they're there to improve a school that your child's attending. I mean, the argument is there, but the local reaction is almost always negative. Like, get out of my way, leave me and my school to us.
Has there been any broader concern about whether this A through F accountability system is working and whether that might change at some point in the future? That would be something that I presume the legislature would have to do. No?
Commissioner Morath likes the A through F, and he's always championed it. In keeping with the STAR test will soon change to not be the be-all and end-all. It'll be administered several times a year with chances for teachers to help students improve weaker areas. Commissioner Morath always says the A through F will change year by year by year if you're trying to improve and increase standards. It's an organic, evolving system of assessment.
Greta, it sounds like Mike Morath isn't wanting to say exactly when a state takeover might be called for Austin. Have you heard anything about a timeline, and what does it look like from your perspective?
Yeah, so we know from the timeline that he gave to reporters that it can be months because the district has a month to appeal, and then there's another 2 months where they look at the results. So it could be months. The timeline that AISD gave during a board meeting was December, and they said that they were still looking at whether they would appeal the grades or not, but it's likely that it will be in December when we know exactly Mike Morath's decision.
Greta Diaz-Gonzalez Vasquez covers education for our home station KUT. Big thanks to Greta and to Bill Ziebel, who reports on education for KERA in North Texas. We'll link to their reporting, texasstandard.org. Thanks to you both.
Thank
Good to be
you.
here.
Audience and engagement editor Wells Dunbar joins us now with a look at the talk of Texas on this Monday. Howdy, Wells.
Howdy, David. Great to be back with you. Well, as we just heard, public school issues top of mind for many Texas parents as the fall semester begins. And with several school districts operating under state control or the threat of it, it's one issue facing families and their students as they head back to class. We're talking about it in depth this week on the Talk of Texas, and we're asking, what should Texas families know as kids head back to school? It can really be anything relevant, only limited by your own experience. Maybe it's that school is getting more expensive, or that a campus rating and a kid's experience aren't the same thing. Maybe it's that parents are being handed more and more information, but not necessarily more clarity. Whatever those thoughts are, we want to hear them. Here's how. Go to texasstandard.org/talk. Create a voice recording we can play on air. This week's query: what should Texas families know as kids head back to school? And, I'll head back to the program here in a couple, at the end of the show, with more responses we're receiving, David.
Yeah, in about 35 minutes or so here on The Standard. There's a whole lot more of The Standard just ahead. Stay with us.
Support for Texas Standard comes from HEB and the My HEB app, which is available for download, and shopping fresh departments like seafood, produce, bakery, and deli, and scheduling curbside pickup or home delivery. More at heb.com.
It's the Texas Standard. I'm David Brown. It's described by its proponents as a Layer 1 digital currency, fast, fair, and forged by a community that believes in honest money. Others describe it as the result of cryptocurrency mania mixed with the vibe of Texas nationalism. The it we're talking about is what's been dubbed the TEXITcoin, and it's run into trouble with the law. As Texas Public Radio's David Martin Davies tells us, today the Texas State Securities Board is expected to present a fraud enforcement case against TEXITcoin.
TEXITcoin promotes itself as a digital currency created in Texas for people who want an alternative to banks and traditional money. But the cryptocurrency and its related crypto mining operations now face allegations of securities fraud from Texas regulators. Last February, the Texas State Securities Board issued TEXITcoin, its founder Bobby Gray, and related companies an emergency cease and desist order. Regulators allege TEXITcoin's mining packages were unregistered securities sold through a multi-level marketing system. The mining packages are passive investments in crypto mining operations that Gray called seats on the TEXITcoin rocket ship.
And they wanted us to stop offering these alleged securities in Texas.
TEXITcoin's slogan is built in Texas, mined in Texas, owned by Texans. But Gray isn't in Texas. He spoke from his boat in Singapore. He left Texas immediately after the cease and desist order on what he called a self-imposed exile. He has complied with the order to stop selling crypto mining packages, but he continues his online promotion of TEXITcoin.
Crypto is very confusing. The industry is full of scams. And so it's understandable that the TSSB took an interest in the project and did what they did, not that we like it.
Gray said TEXITcoin is not a scam, but that's the word critics like Tom Tolka used to describe it.
I saw the TEXITcoin people and all their paraphernalia and their marketing, and it just seemed like a really kind of dirty scam to trick people, based on their political beliefs.
Tolka is a journalist covering crypto for DisruptionBanking.com. There is a website called TEXITscam.com that documents some of the issues with the digital currency. Again, Gray said TEXITcoin is not a scam, but a community currency that picks up where Bitcoin left off.
I don't know what the trolls say. I know that we've got quite a group of people that have dedicated their time and energy to spreading lies about us.
TEXITcoin's mining partner, MineTXE, sold packages that entitled buyers to a share of coins produced by its mining network. Participants could also earn commissions and bonuses by recruiting additional buyers. But Gray said that does not make TEXITcoin a pyramid scheme because a classic pyramid scheme has no real product.
We have an extremely valuable product, and also we have a whole bunch of caps and limitations inside of our referral program that make it so that we've got more than 20 times the national average rate of somebody actually getting a specific benefit out of their participation.
TEXITcoin's website says its mining operation has generated roughly $148 million in gross sales from approximately 55,000 participants. Tolka says many of these are supporters of Texas nationalism.
I would say it's associated with a political movement. It's built around the idea of Texit.
Danny Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, says they are not connected to TEXITcoin.
I don't like it, but there's not really anything we could do about it.
Miller says anyone can grab the word Texit and use it, and the Texas Nationalist Movement does not profit in any way from TEXITcoin. Gray also said there is no relationship with the Texas Nationalist Movement.
I'm not familiar with the Texas Nationalist Movement. We have no affiliation with them. I know of them.
But the TEXITcoin website explicitly promotes the Texas Nationalist Movement. It praises Danny Miller and the Texit movement. It links directly to the Texas Nationalist Movement's website, Instagram, and X accounts, and tells readers to give them a follow. Also, in an extended online monologue about the origin of TEXITcoin, Gray explains that he first heard about Texit while listening to the Joe Rogan podcast.
And I started looking into that, came across the Texas Nationalist Movement and these Republic of Texas folks, and there's some really great people there, some weird ones as well.
Gray said he recognized the opportunity to merge cryptocurrency with the separatist movement, which he supported.
If you talk to a Texan, man, most of us are saying, let's go. We don't know what the federal government's doing. We don't understand it. We don't really want to be lumped in with those weirdos. Let's go back to where it was before. Let's be our own country once again.
And Gray has pitched that if Texas secedes, TEXITcoin could be the national currency. He has called it the future of money in Texas.
But we don't know what the future holds for Texas or Texans. And we would like to imagine that if Texas and its people chose to make it a political change, that they would have an honest currency that they could use instead of coming up with a new debt-based fiat currency.
Journalist Tolka said this narrative is very exciting for many who support Texas secession, whom he described as TEXITcoin's customer base.
And it's a ragtag bunch of people that are noobs. They don't know anything about crypto.
Many of these investors bought TEXITcoin mining operations, thinking the value of the currency would increase and they would get rich. However, that is not the case, Tolka said. Gray said the cryptocurrency has had its ups and downs.
We briefly got very close to $7 in September of 2025, and we've been as low as 5, 6, 7, 8 cents in the last few months. So quite the range.
The Texas State Securities Board is holding an evidentiary hearing beginning Monday to determine whether Gray and TEXITcoin violated the Texas Securities Act by selling unregistered securities and not disclosing critical information, including Gray's previous bankruptcy from a venture called Mulligan Mint. Gray said he has been transparent about that failed business where there is a dispute over missing and unpaid for silver.
Which is just, completely untrue. In fact, it was a regular conversation topic for us because what happened in my life back in 2013 had such a profound effect and impact on my ability to do this project as well as I've done it.
Gray and TEXITcoin deny wrongdoing and argue that the mining packages represent participation in a legitimate proof-of-work mining pool, not securities. I'm David Martin Davies in San Antonio.
Back in 2023, a dog on a beach in Wales came across a battered 2-pound sea creature, which turned out to be one of the most endangered sea turtles in the world, apparently 5,000 miles from his home in Texas. It's rare, but occasionally a Kemp-Ridley sea turtle can get swept up by powerful ocean currents and dragged all the way across the Atlantic. The turtle was taken in by the Sea Zoo in Anglesey, and staffers there spent 2 years nursing him back to health with plenty of food, proper exercise, and a new name too, Rossi. Last week, Rossi was transported to the zoo in Houston. He's just undergone a physical. Staff say Rossi appears healthy, active, and vigorous, though a bit bigger and heavier, now tipping the scales at 46 pounds. After a bit more monitoring in a deep water tank, the plan is to better understand what he'll need to move on to the final leg of his transatlantic round trip and get him back to Gulf waters ASAP. Hope you'll join us in wishing Rossi a happy homecoming. Coming up on 29 minutes past the hour, Texas Standard Time. News Roundup's next. Stick around.
Support for Texas Standard comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a Texas-based workers' compensation provider committed to providing care and support for injured employees. More at texasmutual.com/TexansDeliver.
Live from the Texas newsroom, I'm Shelby Rose. Texas power grid operators say it could take months to complete a data center audit ordered by Governor Greg Abbott. As Houston Public Media's Natalie Weber tells us, how quickly developers respond to the audit could determine how long the governor's data center moratorium will last.
Governor Abbott wants state regulators to collect information on data centers' energy and water usage. Texas Public Utility Commissioner Courtney Hodge-Altman says the length of the audit and the pause of data center approvals will depend on data center developers. Here's Hodge-Altman speaking during a meeting late last week.
You answer this audit, you provide the information, and that's when you'll know your certainty. So it's up to you to answer and do it well.
Texas energy regulators will meet again Thursday to discuss the audit. The governor's data center pause doesn't include projects that are already under construction and have been approved to join the state's main power grid. I'm Natalie Weber in Houston.
A federal lawsuit has been filed to halt border wall construction in Big Bend National Park. U.S. Customs and Border Protection plans to build 200 miles of new roads in the park, along with 17 miles of steel vehicle barriers. San Antonio State Senator Roland Gutierrez filed the lawsuit on behalf of a Lipan Apache advocacy group and a Big Bend business.
We've agreed to do this on our own to try to stop the government from clear-cutting our precious park, our beautiful lands, from taking private property rights as well.
Plaintiffs argue that border wall construction is threatening irreplaceable natural, cultural, and religious resources. They say the Department of Homeland Security is also acting outside authority set by Congress. Leading medical ethics experts say a multi-state controversy highlights significant ethical questions surrounding surrogacy. A surrogate from Alaska traveled to Texas to give birth after she said the intended parents wanted to terminate the pregnancy due to a life-threatening birth defect. A Dallas County judge ordered 2 Dallas hospitals to provide care for the child. Arthur Kaplan spent much of his decades-long career focused on fertility and surrogacy. He says there aren't clear surrogacy laws.
Public should be paying close attention to the many, many gray areas that this case is triggering.
Kaplan also says the use of courts to compel care could be dangerous for other patients. Wildfires are again a threat across parts of the state because of high heat and dry conditions. As many as 100 firefighters were dispatched in the Dallas area yesterday because of a large brush fire. Similar conditions will exist throughout the week across North Texas, with temperatures in triple digits and no rain in the forecast. I'm Shelby Rose in the Texas Newsroom.
You're listening to statewide news from public radio stations across Texas. This coverage is only possible because of support from listeners like you. You can help sustain and grow Texas news coverage by donating to your local public radio station today.
33 minutes past the hour Texas Standard Time. I'm Laura Rice. The gaming platform Roblox is extremely popular. Free to download and easy to get started, Roblox hosts dozens of different user-created games to play on a phone, tablet, computer, or console. But the online world of Roblox can also be a dangerous place. In recent years, parents have spoken up about the platform harboring child predators. That's been followed by a number of lawsuits claiming the company hasn't done enough to protect its young users. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is among those who've sued Roblox for allegedly exposing kids to sexually explicit material. Now the Attorney General says the company isn't cooperating with the court. Paul Flav is the business litigation and bankruptcy reporter for the Austin American-Statesman. Paul, welcome back to the Texas Standard.
Thanks for having me.
Can you give us a few more details about what the state of Texas claims Roblox is doing in the lawsuit?
Yeah, Texas filed a 70-plus page petition with the court saying it marketed itself as safe for children, but allowed sexual predators to offer explicit material and exploit kids on its platform, offering few, if any, protections for those kids and trading in engagement for child safety.
Well, I mentioned there are a number of lawsuits, but is Texas the only state to make this move?
No, it's one of, I want to say, 10 states that have sued. Roblox has settled a number of those cases, and in its last quarterly earnings report said something like $91 million has been spent in settlements or in the work to get to a settlement.
What does Attorney General Paxton say about the level of cooperation he's received from Roblox as the trials proceeded?
Yeah, the state has been complaining that Roblox is stonewalling it on discovery for months. It says it asked it to answer 11 interrogatories and respond to 45 document requests, and by Thursday it had almost no responses. It said in the last week it's had more production than in the previous 7 months, and connected it to this recent hearing and has asked a court to continue having these hearings intermittently to ensure that more production is happening. It's especially interested in trying to get CEO David Baszucki's documents and emails, since they say he is the major decision maker. He's the largest shareholder. It decides on what gets implemented and what doesn't. And he's also the one making these public statements that the platform is safe.
Well, as you mentioned, Roblox is no stranger to these lawsuits, lots of settlements. I mean, is Paxton asking for something in this lawsuit that other lawsuits haven't?
Well, Roblox is saying that they just were asking for too much, that their request was overbroad. And, they started to sort of imply that maybe the state hadn't really done its homework before it filed this 71-page petition filled with allegations, saying essentially that it was a fishing expedition, that if they were to narrow their requests, they could produce more documents, they could get them the answers that they wanted. And they connected their recent successes in producing documents and things like that to the state and starting to narrow its request formats.
Do you get the idea that Paxton is hoping for a big settlement from Roblox, or is there something else that he's aiming for?
Well, his motivations are his own. I don't claim to understand them. He is in a Senate race currently. Big tech companies are very unpopular in the country nationwide, and we've seen a flurry of lawsuits from his office against all of the major tech companies in the last couple of years. So I'll let listeners draw their own conclusions. But right now, there's a November 15th deadline for Roblox to respond and be substantially completed with at least the document production. And the judge also was open to extending that if it wasn't clearly going to happen. But right now it looks like the case is going to keep going forward, and they have a tentative potential trial date in February of 2028. So not anytime soon.
Paul Flav is the business, litigation, and bankruptcy reporter for the Austin American-Statesman. We'll have a link to his full story at texasstandard.org. Paul, thanks again.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Texas Standard Assistant Digital Editor Raul Alonso, and it's part of my job to make sure Texas Standard is everywhere you are. Not just on the radio, but also online, on social media, and now on YouTube. You can listen to each day's full episode of Texas Standard on YouTube. Hit subscribe so you'll always be up to date.
Support for Texas Standard comes from Barron, Adler, Clough & Odo, a Texas eminent domain and condemnation law firm, helping to protect the rights of Texas property owners for more than 40 years. More at barronadler.com. Support for Texas Standard comes from UT San Antonio, a Carnegie Tier 1 public research institution, and designated as Texas's National Institute on Aging Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. More at ambition.utsa.edu.
At this time on our broadcast, we hear our segment This Week in Texas Music History. Unfortunately, we can't play it here on our podcast because of issues with music streaming rights. However, you can find it over at texasstandard.org or find a version on Texas Standard's Facebook or Instagram page.
It's the Texas Standard. I'm Laura Rice. There are landmarks around Austin worth keeping an eye out for because they're often changing. Think funny messages on the El Arroyo restaurant sign on West 5th, or what color the UT Tower is. There's another of these evolving landmarks in central Austin. KERA's Valeria Cruz Butron has the story.
If you've driven through the Crestview neighborhood, you've probably seen it. A giant Adirondack chair sits outside Violet Crown City Church. Sometimes it's painted in rainbows, sometimes it's calling for gun reform, and sometimes it's making references to popular 2000 sitcoms. One Crestview resident could not stop wondering about it.
And I want to know who paints it, where do the ideas come from, and why is it a chair?
Colin Cooper has lived in the neighborhood for almost 2 decades. He drives past the chair every once in a while.
I guess, yeah. I do think for some reason now I associate this Adirondack with Crestview in a way that I can't really explain.
To answer his question, I went to visit the man behind the chair.
The thing is almost 100% paint at this point. I'm not sure how much wood exists under all of it.
Jay Cooper is the pastor at Violet Crown City Church. He is not related to the guy who asked the question, Colin Cooper. It all began about 10 years ago. Jay was going through a divorce, and one night he went on a walk and spotted a pile of discarded wood.
I've always been a bit of a dumpster diver, and so whenever I see especially like furniture that's been put on the side of the road or old wood, I am on it. You know, if you're in the carpentry world, it's called upcycling. I guess in the Christian world, it'd be called resurrection.
Without much of a plan, Jay built a giant Adirondack chair. It sat outside his home in Clarksville and later Brentwood for a couple of years. Then he asked permission to move it to the church.
How the church said, yes, you can put that chair there is still a mystery to me. They're like, sure, he's excited, just let him do it.
Now, 6 years and 125 designs later, the chair has taken on a life of its own. Jay comes up with and paints every single design himself.
I used to only paint it about once a month in the beginning. However, as you're probably aware, the world has gotten a little crazy, and now ideas just come to me in my sleep.
When I went to the church to see Jay, the chair was painted to look like a pair of jean shorts sitting in a shower. If you're a fan of the TV show Arrested Development, you might get it. I may be too young to understand. His first designs were lighthearted, mostly references and jokes, like the jean shorts in the shower. But over time, the chair has become more political, or as Jay likes to call it, more saucy. Jay's done designs calling for gun reform, celebrating the LGBTQ community, supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, denouncing ICE, and more.
So whether they're justice-related or supporting the sacred worth of all human beings in response to something the president says, which we believe is contrary to the way of Jesus, then I do put it up there.
Earlier this year, Jay painted the words, "We want snow, not ice," referring to federal immigration enforcement.
I think we need to respond in ways that love and support our neighbor. And at that particular time, we believed that the tactics of ICE were so far out of line and dangerous that we needed to respond in some way.
Jay says most of the response to the political designs is positive, but not always.
There have been a couple times where people have vandalized the chair. Not the end of the world. I wish they would have just had a conversation with me about it, but that's not oftentimes how people operate.
The church has gotten phone calls and letters demanding apologies for some of the designs.
I'm not going to apologize for supporting women's rights. And so we don't put up messages just to be provocative, but more to encourage those who generally are not supported by this administration or by society.
Not everyone who connects with the chair is religious. Jay painted a design once that said, "We love you and respect you, atheists."
And someone put a little sign on there just saying, "Thank you so much," from a humanist in the neighborhood.
For Jay, that is what the chair and the church are supposed to do. Make people feel welcome and spark conversations.
For me, it's really important that our church be seen as like a house on the street. And so, like everyone else, are we a good neighbor or are we not?
So, that answers most of Colin's question, except for the part of why it is a chair. But even Jay doesn't know the answer to that. It just happens to be what he made out of that pile of wood he found 10 years ago. And even though Colin doesn't go to church or consider himself religious, he appreciates what the chair brings to the neighborhood.
There was a design, I think, supporting marriage equality, and I had my nephew in the car, and he asked about it, and it led to some interesting discussions, and I kind of appreciated it. I thought it was nice that we could have that discussion and have it prompted in a way that I could talk about issues that he may not hear about otherwise.
And now that he knows who's behind the chair, he may start paying a little more attention. I'm Valeria Cruz-Butron in Austin.
Support for Texas Standard comes from Texas Casa. For a child in foster care, small moments today can have a big impact tomorrow. More on how lending time and support can help make a difference at becomeacasa.org.
It's not just about the brisket or the ribs or the sausage or even the sides. It's the culture and people who are passionate about it. Where there's smoke, there's Daniel Vaughn, Texas Monthly Barbecue Editor. Make sure to join us Thursday on the Texas Standard.
Support for Where There's Smoke comes from HEB.
Hey there, it's Texas Standard. I'm David Brown. Temporary Protected Status, TPS, allows people from countries facing war, disaster, or other extraordinary conditions to live and work legally in the U.S., though it does not provide a path to citizenship. A Supreme Court ruling in June cleared the way for the Trump administration to end those protections while legal challenges continue. There are an estimated 147,000 TPS recipients living in Texas. Houston Public Media's Andrew Schneider reports on why many of them are pinning their hopes on what happens at the ballot box in November.
Luis fled Venezuela to the United States in 2017. He'd been in the Venezuelan military, and he says the government persecuted him for protesting against the regime of then-President Nicolas Maduro. We spoke at a private house in Katy, where his friend Jose, a Salvadoran TPS recipient, translated from Spanish. Luis and Jose asked to use only their first names out of concern for their safety.
First of all, I came applying for asylum. And after in 2021, when we were granted TPS, I applied for TPS, and then I was protected with TPS until 2025 that they took it away.
Luis is still in the process of applying for asylum, but he's worried that ICE could detain him at a future court hearing anyway.
Yeah, for sure. I'm afraid because even though I have been doing everything right, I created a company, provided jobs to some other people, but this administration doesn't want people who were not born in the United States.
That concern has only grown since the Supreme Court ruled the White House can withdraw TPS at any time. Jose, the translator, notes that many of the nationalities previously protected by TPS don't have the option of applying for asylum, like Luis. Jose works for an advocacy group called the National TPS Alliance.
We have seen a upstick of people getting detained and deported. And therefore, families are getting worried. People have been losing their jobs. People have been deciding what they're going to do with their houses, what they're going to do with their businesses, what they're going to do with the kids.
The National TPS Alliance has been fighting efforts to end TPS since the first Trump administration. Jose says the group is now pinning its hopes on a change of leadership in the Republican-controlled Congress.
Right now is the ask for Congress to pass a legislation, and it will be after the election. The question is how many people will be able to stay in the U.S. and not getting detained and deported before that comes out.
TPS recipients have an important ally in the business community, much of which is concerned that ending TPS's protections and work permits will worsen labor shortages in fields ranging from home health care and construction to education. Luis Zaldivar is with the American Business Immigration Coalition.
You cannot have businesses just trying to base all their workforce on just Americans. There are just not enough people that are currently available to fill in these jobs. So that is a message that we have been sending out to the administration and Congress.
But Houston immigration attorney Gordon Kwan says that immigrants and their advocates have been waiting a long time for Congress to fix the problems with TPS.
When Biden was first elected, he said in the first 100 days, I'll introduce an immigration bill to begin to address the concerns of all these people. Congress never would act. And so the only thing he had left was TPS in order to protect individuals from being removed.
Kwan says that then-President Joe Biden, a Democrat, may have overused TPS in the hopes that would pressure Congress to enact comprehensive immigration reform. The Supreme Court's ruling suggests that approach backfired. Now, Kwan says, more than 100,000 people across Texas are in a panic over what the future will bring. I'm Andrew Schneider in Houston.
And you are listening to the Texas Standard. Audience and engagement editor Wells Dunbar is back with more of the Talk of Texas, as promised. Hello again, Wells.
Howdy, David. Great to be back. And as we talked about earlier in the program, what should Texas families know as kids head back to school? We are tackling that topic this week on the Talk of Texas, and it is definitely a trenchant one. Dallas ISD opened last week, as did Houston ISD and San Antonio. El Paso ISD got underway earlier in the month, and Austin, Round Rock, Georgetown, all Central Texas ISDs amongst the school districts welcoming students back this week. So, but as we also talked about earlier in the program, no shortage of issues accompanying that return to the classroom. Austin potentially under the threat of state intervention. Houston ISD entering, I believe, its third year under a state intervention from the Texas Education Agency. So no shortage of topics and areas to explore here with this question. What should Texas families know as kids head back? And of course, we want to hear your voice. The best way to do that, TexasStandard.org/talk. Just go there on your smartphone, press that record button, and leave us a voicemail message that we can play on air. We'd love to facilitate the conversation that way. For now, however, we are getting lots of comments online via Facebook. Brandon Park has this bit of knowledge about what Texas families should know here on the eve of, or here in the return to school season. Brandon writes that learning doesn't just end in the classroom. There are plenty of resources kids kids can have access to, which are both educational and fun, like public media programs, museums, and libraries. Additionally, kids should also have some time for themselves too and avoid burnout from schoolwork. Luisa Inez Newton writes here that kids should know that kindness is better than bullying and reading actual books is fun. I know, yeah, shout out to actual books, man. Let's take a screen break. Kevin Lynch, and I appreciate this comment here from Kevin Lynch, also from Facebook, who says, parents are responsible for the lifetime of learning for their children. Kick it off right or the schools will never catch up. Quit blaming teachers, administrators, and schools. Provocative comment, but I think there might be something to that from Kevin Lynch there. Also getting emails, this one from John Touche, who says, maybe fewer public schools would fail if the state fully funded them, regardless of local property values. Of course, referring there to these issues with failing schools and the political dimension there of school funding in Texas. Quite the controversial thing with the recapture of the so-called Robin Hood system. So again, love to hear folks' thoughts about this return to school season and what parents, educators, families should keep in mind here. Again, texasstandard.org/talk. We'd love to get folks' opinions, perspectives, and hot takes there and record them for us so we can play them on air. Again, that's texasstandard.org/talk. Speaking about hot takes and the school dimension, I don't know if you'd seen this, David. Apparently, a Texas lawmaker wants to push the start of the school year back to September, and his main argument is pretty simple. It's that August is just too hot. Apparently, State Rep Jared Patterson says sending kids back to school and during some of the hottest weeks of the year puts kids at risk, especially with outdoor activities, athletics, and transportation. And going as far to call the current August start one of the, quote, dumbest things, close quote, Texas does. Says a post-Labor Day start would make more sense. You know, I got to remember watching that Labor Day telethon being concurrent.
It was always the big signal,
return to school. Yeah, exactly. So, interesting. Another more grist for the mill. So if you think that he's onto something, please let us know at texasstandard.org/talk.
Audience and engagement editor Wells Dunbar with the talk of Texas. Let us hear from you. In the meantime, we're out of time for the big broadcast, but the news continues 24/7 over at texasstandard.org. We'll be back here tomorrow. Hope you can join us.
Philanthropic support for Texas Standard comes from Casey and Scott O'Hare, the Winkler Family Foundation, Lynn Dobson and Greg Woldridge, Adrian Killam, and the George Huntington family.